Okay, let's make a start then. So again, welcome everyone to this is the last 102 session of today, and obviously finishing up the GS UK annual virtual conference. So for this session, we have Joanne Lockwood of See Change Happen, and she's going to be doing a presentation on the power of words, specifically in this case, I am. And this should be like quite an interesting subject because I'm sure we all tell ourselves things and the what we talk to, what we tell ourselves can be quite powerful in how we feel and either bring us up and bring us down in various ways. So I'm really looking forward to this session. But like Joanne said, she was happy to take some questions at the end. But without further ado, I'll hand over to Joanne. So thank you, Joanne.
So I knew from a very early age that I was different to the other children, different to my brothers. And from there, my parents started treating me differently to my brothers. And as I got older and older and older, I realized that I was born into a world that wasn't designed by me, for people like me, designed for other people. What I realized at school, in sport, in PE, my classmates, they did things differently to me. So I became more aware of this by the time I got to about 10, 11 years old, that I realized that this incongruence between who I was and the rest of the world. And this is purely because I'm left-handed. So I was a left-hander. Well, I am a left-hander born into a world designed by right-handed people to exist, whether that's in tennis, racket in the wrong hand, playing squash, cricket, badminton, whatever it was. I was always taught in a right-handed way, but as a left-hander, made to write awkwardly on my page. I'm also a Saturday child. I don't know if you know the rhyme, but I don't know the rest of the days, but I know that a Saturday child works hard for a living. And that's something I've been really, really proud of all my life, that I'm a Saturday child who works hard for a living. And thirdly, I'm a Capricorn. A Capricorn, for me, is part of my identity. So if I think about those three elements that you may not know about me, the fact that I'm left-handed, the fact that I'm a Saturday child, and the fact that I'm a Capricorn, that's part of who I am and has been for most of my life. And it's really dawned on me that those things are something you maybe not tell just by looking at me, just by speaking to me. So a lot of our identity, a lot of who we are, may not be visible when you first meet. So I'd like to talk to you about the power of words and what that means to me, and also a bit about identity and how we can impact people negatively through our words and thoughts and deeds. Is that okay? Right. So I am. I am. That's a very powerful affirmation. I remember 10 years ago, at the point I was gender transitioning from my old life to my current life, I realized that I was confused, trying to figure out and solve that equation. Am I transgender enough? Am I good enough? Can I do this? Is this all that thing, all that sense of imposter syndrome that we have in our heads, telling us these negative small talks. And I remember waking up one day, I was sat at the end of my bed, looking at my toes, tears streaming down my face, trying to figure out who I was. What was my name? What was I doing in my life? And what was going to happen from here? 6 months earlier, my business partners offered to buy me out of my business. So I ran an IT company, 20 odd years. We turned over 3 million in 6 months and we were doing okay. We had 20 odd staff. And my sense of self, I was becoming overwhelmed with gender dysphoria, confusion. And also I was becoming kind of frustrated with IT. So there I was, 6 months down the road, they bought me out and I was sat at the end of my bed, not knowing what my name was, because the day before, having sold everything, that was my gender transition, 1st of March, 2017. And I didn't know who I was. And I think we have all this stuff caught up in our identity, I was a business owner. I had people, I had staff, I had customers, I had a day-to-day routine, and now suddenly I didn't. I didn't even really know what my name was because there I was. Okay, I had some money in the bank, but I didn't know where I was going to go with it. My family, my friends, everyone was still trying to get used to me as a new my new identity and my new persona. And I hadn't discussed with my wife about changing my name. I hadn't discussed with my wife all these details. So we're just trying to figure it out. So as I say, I was looking at my feet, tears running down my face, trying to solve this equation of why. And the way I resolved that was these simple two words: I am. I am good enough. I am me. I'm valid. And I realized I didn't need to solve any equation. So I was able to step out of confusion into this certainty of my life, my new life, just for those two words: I am. So words we tell ourselves, how we describe ourselves, how we talk about ourselves, how we think about ourselves, has a huge impact on our outward persona, our outward performance, how we feel, and also it impacts how other people see us. Because another thing I realized was that in order to be likable, in order to be liked, you have to be likable. In order to be respected, you have to be worthy of respect. So I realized that a lot of that was in my power and my control. How my wife, how my children, how my family, how my friends, how my colleagues saw me was directly related to how I show up in the world. So again, all part of this affirmation, all part of this realization of self, of being good enough, of being valid. I took personal responsibility. So let's talk a bit more about that. So you often hear the phrase, "Hey guys, hi guys, how you doing?" We every time we walk into a restaurant these days, it's, "Hi guys, can I get you a table?" But I ask you, who are the guys we're talking about? Is it gender neutral? Really? Is it gender neutral? So let's think about that. Just as an example. So who do we mean? Do we mean everybody? Because to me, guys is a masculine term. Think about the people in your group, think about the people that you have. Who are the guys? And it's very easy to say, well, we're all guys. It's just a plural. It's just a gender neutral term. But not everybody identifies with that phrase. So we have to be really careful about the context in how we use words. A word, a phrase you use with your friends, with your family, may taken out of context, used in a different environment, may not impact the same. We think of other phrases like love, duck, honey, mate. All of these words seem very innocuous in our in-group when we're talking together. But as soon as we step out, when people don't know us, we can may inadvertently cause offense. So we've got to be careful about who we actually mean when we say, "Hey guys." Because is it actually everyone? Is it really? Does everyone identify and think about that as a term for them? How about we ask Google? What happens if we ask Google? So if you put guys into Google, do an image search, this is the kind of result you're going to get. And I don't see any people that I would perceive as being women on that page. So Google quite clearly thinks guys are men. If a group of ladies walk into a restaurant and say, "We'd like a table, please," often the concierge will say, "Hi ladies, come on in, take a seat, have a table. Hi ladies, what can I get you?" But if four ladies and one man walk into the room, it suddenly becomes "hi guys." So what we're doing is we're masculinizing the definition of the group through the presence of one man. So again, this is really, really important. And it's not about getting really politically correct or woke with our language. It's recognizing how the people in that group, how the people we're talking about are going to respond to the language we're using. So language matters. How we talk about people really matters. So how do we think about the language we're using? I ran a session this morning, and you can catch it on the video and the catch up, called Conscious Inclusion. We have to start thinking about the words, the phrases, our intent, our impact around all of these things in our head. And it may well be we have to take responsibility for changing the way we speak, changing the way we interact. Because in theory, it costs us nothing to make a change. If we know a word, a phrase is problematic to some people, we can make a very conscious decision to avoid using that word. There are many words that were very common in the 70s and beyond and before that we don't use today. If somebody used those words, we find them as like, "Ooh, that's a bit strange. Why we use that word?" I remember back in the days when I was younger, we used to have a collection box, a statuette outside of the local newsagents, and that was the Spastic Society. But the word spastic became pejorative. It was a medical term. It became pejorative. It was used to weaponize against people who had certain conditions. So the society rebranded itself to Scope. And even now, the term scope is also weaponized in some certain areas where that can also be a negative pejorative term. So the language we use does evolve and it matters to the people who we're talking about. Words can divide. I mean, we look at our world leaders, we look at people on the world stage, and we can see that their use of language polarizes. Whether it's for political gain, whether it's to shock, to horror, to negotiate, to force change, we know that our language can be used against somebody else or to empower our people and our tribe. So again, the words we use, what's our objective? Is it to weaponize? Is it to create change? Is it to bring people together? Or is it about dividing and conquering? So again, let's think about how we're using that language and our style of how we use that as well, because words can divide. Words can destroy. We look at what's going on in certain parts of the world right now. Words are destroying communities, destroying lives, whether it be in the Middle East, whether it be in Eastern Europe, whether it be further afield in parts of Africa or South America. We're seeing countries destroyed by words, by rhetoric, by conflict, where people find it difficult to come together to solve and have conversations. So it's important that we think about our objectives in our communication style. What are we trying to achieve? How are we trying to bring people together? Or are we trying to destroy and divide? Because words can heal. There are many great leaders out there, many great politicians, many great influencers in the world, where their words heal. They bring people together. They're trying to look to resolution. They're trying to bring people around the table to the middle ground, not polarized at the edges. Because when we're polarized at the edges, people become other. We use dehumanizing language. We use words that are meant to undermine not just their message, but also their personal credibility. We're attacking them right where it hurts, cutting them off at the knees. So what we need to look is, again, how we're using our language, how we're describing, how we're talking about, how we talk about ourselves, how we show up. Because we have the choice to divide, to weaponize and destroy, or to heal. How are you going to do that? Words also inspire. We look at social influencers, we look at very awesome speakers out there. They have the power to bring us together. They have the power to show that change is possible, that we can be that one person who can make a difference. Martin Luther King here had an inspiring way of speaking. And we see other people, Nelson Mandela, we see Lech Wałęsa from Poland, and other great leaders throughout our times and generation. Each country has their own powerful leaders. But again, that inspiration, if used badly, can lead to destruction and division. So we have a responsibility with our words to ensure that we do it for the betterment of humanity. Do we not? People often think about intent, and I'm a great believer that as a human species, we have good intent. We wake up in the morning believing or a good person. But somewhere along the line, our words, thoughts, and deeds miss the mark. They cause a negative impact on somebody else. So intent means a lot. My good intent is a great starting point, but we have to recognize it's not the whole story. Because the impact on somebody through those words, it can be you're degrading their sense of self, you're weaponizing against them, you're making them feel less than, bad about something, you're not encouraging them, you're dismissing them, you're destroying their psychological safety or their trust in you or trust in the world. So we have to think about the impact we're creating with those words, whether people believe you, whether they trust in you, whether they're going to back you and support you. The impact it's for me, is as great as intent. Because we don't think about the impact of our words, our thoughts, and our deeds, then we will end up dividing, destroying, and weaponizing, not healing and inspiring. So who decides? Who decides if the words are negative? Who decides if they're problematic? Well, for me, it's the person who is the receiver. You, as the deliverer of the word, deliverer of the message, only to deliver what you think through your lens, through how you see the world. How it's received must be the decision maker. When we think about bullying, victimization, harassment, the law in this country says it's in the eyes and belief of the receiver of that message, regardless of intent. So we have to respect a person or a group who says, what you're saying to me is problematic. What you're saying to me is bullying. What you're saying to me is harassment. What you're saying is divisive. So we have to respect that opinion. We don't have to agree with it, but we have to respect it. Again, this is where you have the choice. Once you've learned and you understand that something is problematic and someone's flagged that with you, you have the choice to change. I repeat what I said earlier. It costs you nothing to make that change, to understand. So Oprah, we've come across her on the telly, very famous. And one of her hallmarks is her chat show where she brings people on to listen. Often we're too busy. We don't listen. We just go through our lives. We're oblivious. We're blinkers. We're not focusing on what other people are thinking. But in our workplace, in our society, in our family groups, we like to be listened to. Because if we don't listen, does that person matter to us? If I'm not giving you the time, it's almost saying your thoughts, your opinions don't matter to me. So we need to put down our phones, turn off the telly, turn the radio down, whatever it may be, and give people our full attention. So when we think about how we engage, things like emotional intelligence, it's all about being aware of how we're coming across, how we're portraying ourselves in the environment, to our team, to our group, the people we're talking to. And that helps build trust and build longer lasting relationships. So being an active listener, caring, don't listen to respond, listen to understand. Match the body language, engage with the person. You don't have to agree. Don't have to agree. We all have different perspectives, different opinions. But if we understand why that person thinks something, why that person believes something, that will allow us to form these human relationships that are too easily lost if we dismiss, weaponize, divide. Yeah. And language evolves. I mentioned the statuette, money collection box outside the local newsagent. Yeah, there are other words. Let's take the word queer, for example. Queer was once a pejorative term in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. But younger generations are reclaiming that, reclaiming the word queer. It's no longer weaponized in the same way. So what we find is different communities own words in different ways, and that evolves. So it's important that we all stay up to date with the current terminology, because our Gen Z population, our Gen Alpha population coming through who have just been born, will bring new language, new ways of speaking through music, through clothing, through art into our society. And us oldies or older generation, as a Gen Xer, I need to be understanding that the language I grew up with is now not necessarily either good but also not contemporary, and it evolved. So I'm sure if we look back at the sitcoms of the 70s, look back at the TV from the 90s, even if you look at the millennials' favourite, Friends, if you watch that today through today's lens, you look at it and think, wow, that's so cringy. How could they say that? Why did that storyline just doesn't work? It's very, very white, very chauvinistic, very misogynistic. And that just wouldn't fly today. So again, the language of the media, the television, is evolving all the time. Disney have had to move on from the movie they were producing in the 40s and 50s to now producing stuff that is very much more gender balanced, very much more girl power and focusing on it. Even the latest Snow White film had a new lens on it, a new inclusive lens. So be aware that language evolves. So let's talk about the difference between an identity and a label. Excuse me. So I often say that labels are for beings, not human beings. So a label is something that we give somebody else so that we feel comfortable knowing what's inside of the can. Identity is something we give to ourselves. We own that. So you give me a label, I own my identity. Sometimes there's a line, often they don't. Because labels are often used to categorize, to stereotype, rather than for benefit to me. Yeah, for data collection, for statistics, whatever that may be. Whereas I'm happy to own the word queer, but don't call me queer. You may use that word respecting my identity, but not to weaponize against me. So really be really careful how someone describes themselves isn't necessarily a label you can use towards them. Yeah. Labels are beings, not for human beings. So the power of words. We have this power. How we talk about ourselves, how we talk about others, how we divide, how we weaponize, how we destroy, or how we heal, how we inspire. We have the choice when we're thinking and speaking what our words are going to do, but only if we're conscious and if we understand the impact and the context in which our words are going to be used. So we have to choose our words wisely. As we're on this path, heading off into the distance, our words matter. Your words matter. You have a responsibility to think about the words you use, think about the intent of the words you use, think about the impact of those words, and think about what you're trying to achieve through that communication. We don't know where the other person is in their life. We don't know what's going on, the stresses they're under. We don't know how they will interpret. And I often talk about positive people experiences. That's the outcome we're all trying to achieve. Every interaction with you, with me, as an organization, as a company, I want to be positive. And if I start with that end in mind, that I'm looking for a positive outcome, then I could go on that journey to try and create that through words, thoughts, deeds, actions. So we should all choose our words wisely and recognize that we have the power to choose those ourselves and not just go through stereotypes and labels. So I am what I am. My identity is who I am. I'm a left-hander. I'm a Saturday child. I'm a Capricorn. I'm also a queer transgender woman. And I'm really comfortable with that. But don't weaponize it. Don't label me. Don't call me queer. Don't use that against me. About respecting. And half the thing is you may not know that just by bumping into me, by passing me on the street. So don't judge, don't stereotype, don't label. Get to know me. Get to know what makes me happy and what makes me sad. Because then we can truly focus on creating positive people experiences. Is that fair? I'm a great believer that we should speak from our heart. As I said earlier, we're by definition, humans are kind. We're kind as a species. We don't set out to harm with intent. We do speak from our bias. We do speak from our in-group. We do speak from our tribe. And we often get validation from people who agree with us. But it's important to remember again not everyone has to agree with us, and that our opinion is just our opinion. So if we speak from the heart, speak from the truth, speak through kindness, then we're less likely to impact somebody else negatively. Yeah. So let me leave you with a thought, and then we can move on to some questions. You have the power of words. Wield them wisely and fairly. Think about the objective of those words. Is it to divide? Is it to destroy? Or is it to heal, to unify, and inspire? That's your choice. I'd love your feedback. There's a QR code on the screen. This is, I think, no, this is 3S. Sorry, this is not 3N. This is 3S. I didn't change that slide from earlier. But please scan the QR code. Please give me the feedback. And I also encourage you to go back actually and listen and watch 3N. I go into a lot more detail about conscious inclusion. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening. I am Joanne Lockwood, left-handed, Capricorn, Saturday child, and transgender. Thank you.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Joanne. I really appreciate your time today and for your previous session as well. Again, we'll just give it a moment to see if any questions come through. But as Joanne said, yeah, please do leave feedback. It's really well received. And as well, like she said, these sessions are recorded, so go back and feel free to listen into the previous edition. It was really interesting. So just got a few comments in there. So yeah, thank you. Kindness is key from Raminta. Thank you very much for that comment. I completely agree. But yeah, I'm happy to wrap up. But yeah, thank you so much again for your time, Joanne, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate it, and hope everyone enjoyed this year's virtual conference. So yeah, thanks again.
Thanks, Chris. Take care.
Thank you all.